Until very recently, the United States was the only player in the game when it came to drones. We had drones of every size, from things the size of a grasshopper to things the size of a 737. What is unique about the American drone system, and so what we thought was true about all drone systems, was that they were expensive and they were in small numbers. American technology, when it comes to the military, has always been about quality over quantity, because wherever we go in the world, we will always be hideously outnumbered. So we've got to be able to punch harder at a further distance. And that's the Reapers, and that's the Predators, and that's the Special Forces drones, all of that. What we have seen in the last few years, however, is that there's a cheap approach, that there's nothing about the technology that says it has to be top notch. And if you make 50 really, really cheap ones, you can still do a lot of damage. Now, for the United States, I'd say that kind of the problems fall into two general categories. The number one is the new Joint Strike Fighter, which is supposed to be our only airborne weapons platform for the next 20 years. Its range is somewhat limited, and those little Iranian moped drones have greater range than the Joint Strike Fighter. So all of a sudden now, our weapons platform, to be perfectly blunt, is broadly useless. Because if they were to launch 1,000 of those things at a base where the JSF was based, one of them is going to get through, no matter how good your defenses are. So that limits the sort of military activity the United States can do, largely removes our ability to have air cover from ground installations. We'll have to do it only from naval platforms. The second problem we've got is anyone can do this. I mean, Hamas is many things, but an economic player, no. A technological player, no. And the fact that you can basically put these together in your garage and launch them by the dozens makes for a different sort of conflict. Now, that works both ways. And what the United States military is doing is something called the Replicator Initiative, where it will basically start using American resource scale to build Hamas-style drones. And the goal is to be able to independently attack 2,000 Chinese targets and destroy them within 24 hours using our naval platforms. So basically, things like destroyers and, God forbid, carriers just carry tens, if not hundreds of thousands of these things. And we just launch a locust swarm. So two can play by this game, but it does mean that the military tactics that we use are going to have to evolve. Instead of having a very small number of very high-end military vehicles, you just launch a cloud of very low-end stuff that is attritable and disposable. I don't think people have thought through how much that gives the advantage to a country like the United States. We will have to fight differently, and kind of the sunk costs that we've put into some of these technologies are suddenly going to become very questionable. But there is no country in the world that can adapt in the way the United States can. So let's say 2 years from now, we have a direct fight between the Americans and the Chinese. Sure, they can build a lot of drones, but they have to target something that they can't see and that can move. And AI is nowhere close to being able to target things over the horizon where they have to do a search pattern. Whereas the US Navy is going to know exactly where their targets are. They're on land with satellite recon, we can find them. And we just launched 10,000 drones at whatever it happens to be. So this is a really, really bad development for the Russias and the Chinas and the Irans of the world, getting the Americans to think about this differently. Because our ability to adapt to that environment, combined with our mobile firepower of the Navy, that's going to be crippling for all of them.